Hello Year 5, welcome to another week of home learning. We are going to have a look today at dividing by 10, 100 and 1,000 instead. Just a quick note to say, English today, you really need to read it carefully, at least twice, all the instructions, because there's a lot there. And it's because normally it's something I would guide you through very slowly in school, and we'd have lots of help and we do it together, but I'm trying to get you to do it on your own. I know you don't have your plans at home, but actually a lot of you will be able to remember most of your plan, or you can just make one up and start again. I'm interested in suspense when we get there. So today it's all about the setting and just starting to write slowly. Do not try and finish it all today. Those of you that come back during the week, if you're writing on paper, so you're not having to stare at the screen the whole time, can you please bring it with you? Because we're going to be continuing on those stories all week. So if you come back on, say, Wednesday or Tuesday and you don't have that with you, it's going to be very difficult. So please bring them with you. Okay, so maths today, we're going to be dividing rather than multiplying. So this is the next step. We've multiplied. We've multiplied with decimals. Today we're going to divide, and that includes decimals as well. Again, there'll be a point where I ask you to stop this video and go to the next video. I used to be able to do a video within video, but it never quite worked properly. There was always a huge gap. So I'm just doing 2 separate videos, and it's a bit quicker for me as well, because this does take me quite a while. Okay, so have a look at these numbers on the left. What's happened to them by the time they've got to the right hand side, and how do you know? So just have a look. How do you know what's happened? Well, hopefully you can see that we've still got the same digits, 2 and 4, and here's the 2 and the 4. The 0 has gone, however. We've got the 3 and the 2, and here we've got the 3 and the 2, and they're in the same order, just like with multiplying. This time, instead of getting 10 times bigger, we've got 10 times smaller. So we've done exactly the same as last week, but in reverse. We've divided by 10 instead of multiplying by 10. So 240 becomes 24 when it's 10 times smaller. 32 becomes 3.2 when it's 10 times smaller. Okay, this is the point where I want you to stop the video, and we're going to have a go with one of the place value sliders. Again, you haven't got them at home, so you could just draw out a place value chart and just physically write the digits in the correct columns. So these are some of the questions that we can have a look at while we are dividing. I might do some hundreds and some thousands as well. So pause the video now and come back to this one when you've watched the other one. Okay, so now you've seen that other video, I'm hoping you'll be able to explain the connection between these 3 calculations. And if you think back to the connections when we were finding the multiplying, it's exactly the same but reverse. So 7,590 divided by 10 is 759, divided by 100 is 75.9, and divided by 1,000 is 7.59. Hopefully you can see that each time the digits have been moved another place to the right. Remember, going to the right this time because we're getting smaller. And what you might have noticed, the same way that when we times by 10 and times by 10 again, it was the same as timesing by 100. So multiply by 10, multiplying by 10 again was the same as multiplying by 100. Here it's the opposite. Dividing by 10 and dividing by 10 again is the same as dividing by 100. And if we divide by 10 and divide by 10 and divide by 10 again, it's the same as dividing by 1,000. Or we can divide by 10 and then divide by 100, and that's the same as dividing by 1,000. And that's because they are all so closely linked. They're what we call powers of 10. So when dividing by 1,000, you are actually dividing by 10, dividing by 10, and then dividing by 10 again. 3 moves on our place value chart. Okay, have a look at this and see if you think it's true or false. If I divide a 4-digit number by 1,000, it always has a number after the decimal point. Explain your answer. Is there a time when it won't have a number after the decimal point? It's not going to be because of the magnitude or value of the numbers, because if you've got 4 digits, let's say the largest one is 9,999, you're always going to move them so that at least one of those, or not at least, but the digit in the ones column is always going to end up in the tenths. But there is a time when you might not have a digit in the tenths, and that's if the digit that was in the ones column was a 0 to start with. So if I had 9,990, I would move those digits and it would end up with 999 in the hundreds, tens and ones, and the 0 would then move to the tenths. And as we know, we don't need that 0, it goes. So this is a sometimes true one. It's false in that if you have a digit in the ones column to start with that's a 0, like the number 1,000, for example, you won't have a digit in the tenths because you will get rid of it. You don't need it. So that's the only time when it's not true, is when it's a 0. Okay, so the work I want you to do today, you will find this little chart in the Google Drive, in the lesson attached in as a Google Slides. And what I've done is that I've put a little text box over each of the gaps so that you can double click on it and you can type in your answer. And it should work quite nicely. What you've got to do is you have a starting number, which you've then got to divide by 10, then go back to your original number, divided by 100, go back to your original number and divide it by 1,000. Some people get confused and they think, do I have to divide the number that's then here by 100? But no, you don't. You can always go back to your original number. So the ones that are fairly easy are this top one and this fourth one. However, when you get to the rest of them, you don't have your starting number. So to find your starting number, you've got to think, well, this has already been divided by 10. So what was it to start with? We had a few like this in the multiplying last week. So this time, instead of dividing by 10, you've got to make it 10 times bigger to find what it was to start with. So go backwards. What did I divide by 10 to get to 13,050? So just to give you a clue on that first one, it will be, excuse my messy writing, you know I can't write on the computer, 130,500. Because that makes it 10 times bigger. And then I can double check that by thinking, if I divide 130,500 by 10, do I get to 13,050? And then I can divide 130,500 by 100 and then by 1,000. Always remember to go back to your starting number. It gets a bit trickier here because you've already got it divided by 100. So you've got to make it 100 times bigger to find the original number. What would it be if that's the answer once it's been divided by 100? And then what would this one be once it's been divided by 1,000? Now I know children have struggled with this little sheet in the past. Start with the first one and the fourth one. They're the easy ones. You could even work backwards and do one at a time and get to the original. But what I would suggest is once you've got the original number, check that it all works. Then work through it again. Check that everything works. Really, really check it. Okay? People have struggled with this in the past, but it's a really good practice. If you get through that quite quickly, there is this activity for greater depth. But as always with greater depth, this is optional. I've put this on the Google slide as well, so you don't have to come back to this. It's on the Google slide. As always, it is optional. Okay, you don't have to do this one, but I know a lot of you like a challenge in maths and you like to have a go at the greater depth. So that's there to have a go at as a challenge. Okay, I'll leave you with that today. tomorrow we're going to be combining everything and doing some multiplying and dividing by 100, by 10, 100 and 1,000. Okay, I will speak to you all tomorrow. Have a good day.